they gave us the easy night. You should see the teams that are playing tonight.
Thought it was just an easy week, right?
I guess, but these are even worse.
That's all good. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you're
Yeah, I'm
good.
here. Yeah, that's a lot of notes. It's a very good point. Does not have a name.
Marvel buddies.
Marvel buddies.
The Marvel
Marvel
buddies.
buddies. One says you're not audible. Micro. Someone said they can't hear you in chat.
No, you're not.
Imagine.
Is this
Yo,
better?
I hear
Can they
myself
can you
though.
guys hear me now? Does this work? Shaw, thumbs up, thumbs down. I know you're in here. This should be better.
Yeah, you're coming through.
I'm coming through. All right, perfect. As I was saying, we didn't have a name for our podcast. Marvel Buddies, is that what we're going with? I guess.
Marvel buddies.
Marvel Buddies. All right. I still think that's a work in progress name, but you guys can let me know. So Marvel Loki debuted in Marvel Comics in Journey into Mystery number 85, which was what Thor comics were originally called, in 1962, which is he's been around for a while. The comics in the 60s were a lot what's the word? They were a lot more to the point here. So Loki was pretty much just a villain the way he was. He didn't have as a complex of a nature as you see in movies, TV shows, stuff like that. He was Thor's villain he was Thor's villain, and there are even some comics that like date him back to the 40s, like debuting in the 40s as a minor character. But Loki is a Norse god, and he has a lot of backstory to him. Like we have stories from him from the 60s, and whatever stories have been told from him via Norse mythology. So since there's a lot of this to go by, if at any point you guys have questions, chat, or Zeno and Ducky, or if I'm going too fast, or if anything's going on, you just let me know, um, so that I can explain or slow down or whatever.
All right, I'll bang on my desk.
All right, all right.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
So, as we all know, Loki started off as the god of mischief, right? He's in mythology. He was born of Laufey. He's the son of Laufey, and yeah. And he's a lot of powers, right? So as a frost giant, he has cryomancy. He can shoot ice from his hands. But
Wait, I have a question.
okay,
You said he's a frost giant?
yeah. Loki was born a frost giant. So he's not Asgardian. He was born in Jotunheim, which is the realm of ice, right? If I'm getting that correctly, there's like a lot of realms. Um, so Loki was born from his father isn't while he is Thor's adopted brother and Odin's adopted son. He isn't he wasn't he's adopted. He wasn't born from them. He was born from
Oh.
Laufey, who is the king of the Frost Giants, and because of that, he's Laufey didn't really accept Loki because he wasn't a frost giant. He wasn't like a building sized man. He was a normal sized person, and so
Bro, you made him. It's not his fault. That's messed up.
and so and so because of that, he was kind of abandoned. He didn't really. He didn't. Laufey didn't want him. Laufey beat him and tortured
Nice.
him. And, yeah, it was really like
No, do not condone child abuse.
yeah. Loki's upbringing was really rough for him, and so just to get into like Loki backstory from like mythology, he has cryomancy because he's a frost giant. He can shoot ice from his hands and make ice things or cryokinesis. And he's also a wizard or witch or magic user from that he was taught on Asgard. He had a knack. His big thing is that he has a knack for shapeshifting. He can change into animals. He can change into other people. He can change into different things. He can even like change parts of his body. There's scenes where he changes his head to be like the head of an antelope or whatever, like a deer or something.
Yeah,
Um,
aren't some of his kids animals or something?
yeah. So I will for sure get into that as quickly as possible. He has Loki being the mind you, I did put a warning into this that it would be 18 plus. Um,
Oh.
Loki is he can make his own kids because he is both man and woman. He can
Nice.
Wait,
yeah.
what?
Loki is both man and woman. So
He's just like me for real.
so he made Hela, right? The goddess of death, the villain in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of her.
She is actually Thor Loki's daughter, and he can also shapeshift to make have kids with animals. In one instance, he had a kid with a horse. He changed himself to be a female horse and had kids. And if you remember, also in Ragnarok, Hela's wolf.
So, wait. So you're telling me Loki made the conscious decision to get railed by a horse? Why?
Why not? He's Loki. He can do whatever he wants.
That's a great
There's
question. Why not? What's wrong with that? Huh?
Look, I'm no expert in Norse mythology. I'm just an expert in Loki in the comics. All right. And he also birthed Fenris Wolf, the big wolf from Ragnarok, um, that Hela revives. Yep, that is also he birthed it. It is his child. Um, and so yeah, yeah.
This
Loki,
My
man is
only
all over the
question.
Loki's
place.
a massive freak.
My only question is, what are the odds I am Loki's offspring?
Uh, you have any Norse genes in you? Any animal
Uh,
genes in you?
I see. That's the thing. I don't know, but I just want to find out what are the odds that I am a descendant of Loki,
I
Okay.
mean, shit, do we know how many
specifically
things
from the
he
horse side.
Um, I don't know, man. It's you got any horse genes in you?
All right, I'm gonna go take a 23andMe test. BRB.
Yeah.
fucked?
Yeah. So Loki's a bit weird with that. He's a big shape shifting character. But other than that, he has different kinds of powers. He's a hypnotist. He can hypnotize people. Yeah, Loki is very much a wild kind of character,
Nice.
and he can do things like hypnosis, molecular rearrangement, shoot energy, levitate. Um, to a degree, some comics have him like wear boots, special boots or stuff like that. Teleport is the other big thing. He can teleport himself to different places on the realm.
Yo, this guy is loaded with powers.
Yeah,
Oh my.
Loki's great. He's a magician. His big thing in the '60s when he was debuted is that he's like a magician. So and he's also at as you've seen in the movies, Loki's a really good like sword and knife user. He can use like you've seen him in Ragnarok with the two knives, the scepter in the Avengers movie, and in the comics he has a sword. I'll get to the name of it later, but it's funny. It's called Damage Twig is the name of his special sword. Um, so he's really good with weapons and other things apart from just being you know other weapons such as the Casket of Ancient Winters. He's had the Tesseract, different things like that that he's adept at using. Um, and here's the like stuff if you guys want to read any of that. But the big thing with Loki and why he does what he does, at least in the beginning in the '60s, was his hatred for Thor. Um, Loki when in Norse mythology, or even in like Catholicism, you see like when people go to war, they pray to God, and God will aid them in war. Um, People didn't really pray to Loki. They kind of offered sacrifices to him to like appease him. Like, please don't bring harm to my family. Please don't do this to my family. They more so prayed to Thor because Thor was big, Thor was pretty, Thor was strong. He could hit people really well. He summoned lightning. So when people went to sea, if he summoned lightning, big storms, right? So his hatred, at least in the comics, came from that, from the idea that everyone loves Thor and no one loves Loki, right? Loki Loki's like abandoned. His father didn't love him. Even Odin wouldn't give him the throne because he's not an Asgardian, right? So it stems from all this and his hatred for Thor. So in the first Thor comic, Journey into Mystery, um, you find out that he's trapped inside this magical tree, right? The people of Asgard hate him. They all know that he's a trickster.
So
He's
he
been
be fucking trees too.
so um, inside the magic inside the magic tree, he's been stuck there for millennia, right? He can't move, he can't leave, he can't do anything, just whatever a tree does. And so and so he's this entire time been wanting revenge on Thor. So what he does is the only way to be free from the tree is if a citizen of Asgard cries for him. If any one of them sheds one tear for him, he'll be free. But no one would consciously do it because they all hate Loki. So what he does is he kind of wiggles the tree around and makes a leaf fall. And while Heimdall, I'll get onto Heimdall a little later. He's not really someone I want to talk about here. But if you guys do want another episode on Heimdall, I can link Google form and you guys can vote on him. But when Heimdall's passing the tree, um, Loki kind of makes the tree branches move and hits it. One of the leaves hit Heimdall in the eye, and like he tears up a little because of the like they smacked him in the eye kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so he sheds a tear for Loki, and out comes Loki, right? And Loki wants to hunt Thor. That's his first thing. He's like, I want to get revenge on Thor for putting me in this tree for making my life nightmares, right? And so he he uses like spells and stuff to try and figure out where he is, and he finds out that he's on Earth or Midgard as they call it, playing with children at a children's hospital, right? Like cheering them up, like they're like Make a Wish patients. So he was trying to like when the Avengers show up,
Oh
kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So Loki kind of is like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna mess with this guy, but so in the 60s, right, with Thor, there's a big thing with Thor that the movies didn't cover. Um, when Thor was banished to Earth by Odin, right? You remember first Thor movie? Um, he needed to learn
Yeah.
humility, right? When Thor is banished to Earth by Odin, he has a alter ego or a persona that he takes place a human mortal body called Dr. Donald Blake, and they reference that in the first Thor movie. So he takes on this like crippled doctor, right? He can't really his like left or right leg, one of them is like really badly broken or damaged, and he can't really walk well. So he uses like this wooden stick to walk, and it's kind of to like for him to learn humility amongst the mortals, right? He's this big god, but no, and so he's a doctor and he does doctor things. That's how he was able to be in the room with the kids. And so you know he leaves. He comes back as Don Blake, and Loki can't find him because he's not Thor anymore. He's not. He doesn't have the magic like tracking on the special magic hammer that he was using. Um, so um, Loki like waits him out and tries to like look for him. And so he's like, if Thor won't if I can't go to Thor, I'll get Thor to come to me. And that's when he starts making a disaster, and he uses his magic to and I'm gonna enunciate my words here because I'm a lot of people might think I'm gonna say a no word, but he negatizes yeah the citizens of New York, right? And basically he makes them all negative, right? And so they all kind of like turn to stone, and they're all negative and whatnot. And
Wait, they turned to stone?
yeah, apparently in the '60s, I don't know what these guys were snorting, but yeah, becoming negative means that you just turn into a rock, I guess.
Okay, okay.
I don't know, man.
And
I'm
that
a
checks out. It's not like there's another word for that or anything. Let's go with negatized.
yeah. So
Yeah, pretty much.
he he makes people negative, and then Thor shows up. He's like, oh yeah, please please don't use that word, please. Anyway, chat. Uh, uh, yeah. Sorry. The N word. Is still lingering. Um, but yeah, Thor shows up to try and fight him, and the N word. Anyway, Thor shows up to like fight him, and Loki's in this like iconic pose up here, the on top of this column thing here, and he's like, "Come fight me, I'm your sworn enemy," and being that Thor is a lot stronger, Loki has to outsmart him, right? So when he draws him out, he's like, "All right, I'm gonna take you into the sky, right? Have you fight me in the sky." Part of Thor's curse is that if he lets go of Mjolnir for too long, he uh he turns back into Don Blake, and doing so makes him mortal, and that's how Loki can kill him. So, um, Loki brings him up to the sky and tries to draw him out there to fight him. Yeah, and he kind of uses Thor's hammer to mind control him. Like he uses like these special rays that he has on his like magic rays or whatever, and kind of mind controls Thor into like submission, right? So he brings him back down. They land on like a piece of dirt or whatever, and he's like, okay, now give me your hammer. And Thor says, I can't do that. By Odin's will, I'm bound to only give this hammer to Thor. So Loki says, okay, how about I make a clone of Thor with my magic, which he does, and then he's like, now you give the hammer to Thor, and he drops the hammer, kind of like the spell dissipates and the hammer's dropped, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, okay, now let they drop like outside of a what do they call like a zoo, and he's like, okay, now go to the beasts, and he walks up to the lion's den, but since he can't hold on, since he let go of the hammer, he turns back into Donald Blake, and doing so, he's kind of like undoed of the magic spell mind control thing that Loki had on him, and he turns back. He gets the hammer, turns back, and beats the crap out of Loki. And this pisses Loki off because he can't win. He can't beat him again. He's lost another time, and so Loki tries to foil set up another scheme to um, get to Thor. And so here we get to the first Avengers comic, which is how it came to be. Which is pretty much the premise of it is it's real quick is that he believes the only character strong enough to beat Thor is Hulk, right? Hulk is a brute. He's really strong, and so um, he mind controls the Hulk because the Hulk's kind of like dumbish, but not as dumb as you'd think. He's not like Hulk smash, no banner, only Hulk like in the movies. But he's not like it's kind of weird in the '60s. All right, he speaks like New Yorker '60s kind of talk, like let me at a boss kind of thing. Like it's really awkward and like weird for
Hey,
yeah, it's for a Hulk. Like when you read these comics, so
hey, boss, am I gonna smash this guy or what?
yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much how it is. It's a mixture of that and like Hulk smash, right, kind of thing. But it's like it's really weird when he speaks because it's like, all right, please chill. Um, but um, but in the first comic, right, he gets in that first Avengers run, he mind controls Hulk and gets him to like break a subway train or like break the rails off a train, thinking that it's a villain he's fighting. He sees a villain, he like smashes on him, and it breaks the rails. And so a train is coming. He's like, holy crap! Hulk's like, holy crap! I gotta save these people. So he lays on his back and lets the train kind of like go on top of him.
What a guy.
Yeah, but the people on the train were like, Hulk's breaking the the tracks for us, and he's causing damage to us. That's property damage and stuff. Um, so he he's like the people are like, well, Hulk's causing a disaster. Hulk's breaking everything, and they send radio waves out. And Hulk has like this best friend, Rick Jones, and the Teen Brigade they call it, and they're in charge of keeping an eye on Hulk, right? And if anything ever goes wrong with Hulk, they'll call the Fantastic Four, which is the main at the time before the Avengers, the Fantastic Four were the only like superhero team out there like no other there weren't any other superhero teams other than them. And so, Rick Jones was like, oh, we have Hulk on the loose. Hulk did some damage, but I know it's not. He didn't do it on purpose. Let's call the Fantastic Four and have them clear the situation up. Um, so they send like a radio message. It's the '60s. They pretty much only have radio and like dial up, whatever, boop, 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 Morse code nonsense thingy. Um, so the message is sent. The radio waves are sent, and Loki intercepts the radio waves. He's like, all right, I'm gonna make it so that it doesn't reach these Fantastic Four guys. It'll only go to Thor, and then when Thor gets there alone, he has to fight the Hulk, and he can't. But when he intercepts the radio waves, he kind of messes up, and he sends it to like everybody instead of just Thor. So he sends it to Thor in like his like old timey radio station. He sends it to Iron Man, who's like plugged into his like
Oh,
charging
Loki,
station.
you dummy.
Loki, what a dummy. He sends it to Ant-Man and the Wasp, who are in like a miniature kind of what do you call it? A mini like a science lab. And the Fantastic Four do get it, but they're too busy for that. So we next. Um, they show up. Thor's on a rampage. He's I think at this point he's trying to lie low. And here's Loki, by the way, um, how he looked like in the first Avengers. But I think he's trying to lie low um, at like a carnival or like a circus as like the strong robot man kind of thing. It's
Okay.
yeah. So you have Hulk lying low, and the Avengers meet up with Rick Jones to talk about Hulk. And I'll show you Loki here, Avengers again. And so they meet up with Hulk, and there he is. They're talking about how they're gonna deal with it. And out of the reflection of the window, Loki's like listening, and Thor sees, and he goes, I know how to deal with this. Don't worry. And Thor kind of like dips, and the other Avengers kind of like, all right, we gotta go deal with this now. Thor left. I don't know where he went, but we gotta go beat up the Hulk. And they track him down to the circus, but the Hulk is really strong, so he outdoes Ant-Man and the Wasp. He outdoes Iron Man. And meanwhile, Thor takes the Rainbow Bridge back to Asgard. He's like, all right, Loki, I know you're not here, but you're playing. Your mind games are done now, no more. And he takes Loki out of he's in like this island of silence. I'm pretty sure that's where he was banished to, and he brings him back down to Earth, to Midgard, and he's like, all right, explain yourself to them. And that's when the Avengers get together and pretty much jack up Loki, and that's pretty much classic Loki. That's the original like '60s run of Loki kind of thing. The Wasp ends up pointing the Avengers, the term for the Avengers, and that's pretty much it. That Loki is a villain made for villainous purposes. Um, and here's where I kind of want to get some spoiler alerts to the TV show, the Loki TV show, if you haven't seen it already. Like those for people in the chat and Seno and Ducky. I know you haven't seen it much, have you?
No, I
Nah,
haven't.
I haven't seen it.
So I'm gonna try and stray from all the big stuff that happens, but there's a small scene where Owen Wilson's character Mobius, um, he shows Loki like this film, and it's like he's showing him his life, and he's like, Loki, you've always been a villain. Your role to play in this world is nothing more than the villain, to make people like Thor, people like Iron Man, the Avengers, whoever you mess with, Spider-Man, whatever. You're the villain to make them the real heroes of the story, the real MVPs. You're there to make them better, get them to get all the glory, and you'll never be more than that. Pretty much is what Mobius kind of aligns to, and that's where we get to like the modern comics of the modern Loki comics. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in these comics, and it's a lot of it is like freak shit right here. Like this is where they really dwell down into the deeper stuff. So there's a couple of comics that I wanted to get into. You guys know about Frog Thor, Throg?
No.
Somehow I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, he was in there's a little Easter egg of him inside of one of the Loki episodes. You guys can catch that if you guys haven't seen it. But so Throg, right? It's another prank that Loki pulls on Thor. Loki's like, ooh, I'm gonna use my magic on Thor. Thor gets changed into a frog, and while he's a frog, talking to other froglings of his kind, and he finds out that the frogs are in a great war against New York City rats. Yeah, I can't
Yo,
make this shit up, bro. So Thor, doing the only logical solution, joins the joins the frogs in their fight against the rats.
I mean, to be fair, those fucking rats are everywhere, man.
Yeah, they are. And Frog Thor kills some of the rats. All right, I wanna see if you guys can guess where what that's too complicated here. I'm just gonna go with it. Um, he grabs the rats by their tails and draws them down to the sewers, right? And what big animal is always hiding in the in the sewers?
Tell me there's not an alligator in the sewers.
Yeah, let's go. He gets all the alligators to come out and eat all the rats. He uses the rat blood kind of like to lead them to the rat infestation, into the
Oh
rat king's
god.
hideout, and the alligators come out and eat all the rats.
No.
Yeah, and then and then Thor, being like, I gotta get back and beat the crap out of Loki for making me into a frog, has to lift up Mjolnir, and a tiny frog lifted up. That hammer is really small for Thor, but it's humongous for Throg. So he has to kind of like lift it with whatever like strength he has. And he lifts it like an inch off the ground, and bam, he turns back into like normal size. But he's still a frog, so he's this giant frog Thor thing. And so he takes the Rainbow Bridge back to Asgard, and he beats the crap out of Loki until he until Loki turns him back. And it's another like one of those really funny things that Loki does, because it's like Loki's Loki's a bad guy, but he's more of a dick than he is a bad guy. He's a jerk. And in
I
order,
mean, at least unintentionally he saved the frogs.
yeah, I mean, you know, I guess so.
I
Um,
think I think my favorite part about every one of these Loki stories ending is he gets up and he goes and he beats the crap out of Loki.
he gets his ass handed to him every time, but I promise you, Loki gets his redemption. Um,
Okay.
so in there's also a really funny scene. It's the comic is it's called Marvel's Act of Vengeance, and pretty much Loki gathers all the main villains, right? The Red Skull, Magneto, the Kingpin, everybody, and he says, you guys can never beat your hero team, right? Doctor Doom, you can't beat the Fantastic Four. They always scheme you. They always beat your schemes. Magneto can never beat the X-Men. Captain America always beats the Red Skull, right? So what if I were to make it so that I partner you guys up, and you guys deal with your each other's villains, right? So the Red Skull working with this guy, and then you take on Captain America, and then we take on the other guy's villains, right? So Loki has this whole scheme working to get these guys to beat their heroes, right?
Hmm.
More or less to get Thor out of the picture, right?
Okay.
But he makes some really funny partnerships. The big one, the really big funny one is I'm gonna let you guess. I'm gonna give you like a list of characters, and I'm gonna let you guess which one is the really bad one here. Um, so here they have the Kingpin, the Kingpin, the Red Skull, um, Doctor Doom, the Absorbing Man, and Magneto. Those five. Which pair of those guys do you think is like the worst pair possible?
Kingpin and the Absorbing Man.
I guess there's how about the Jew and the Nazi, uh,
Who?
the Red Skull and Magneto.
Oh no.
What's them
Okay,
together?
so I didn't know that, but uh, yeah, that is a pair
Yeah,
indeed.
that is a very special pair, and and so Eric Lenshaw, being like of Jewish descent, is paired up with with the Red Skull, and he's like, all right, we're gonna take care of you guys are gonna take care of the X-Men, and then you're gonna take care of Captain America, and Magneto's really there. Magneto's more or less has always been like teetering on the edge of good and bad, more so of revenge kind of thing. And so Magneto asks the Red Skull, like, "Are you the one that served Adolf Hitler?" And the Red Skull goes, "I'm in my like second body, but yeah, pretty much. I work for Adolf Hitler." And he's like, "I will never, ever work with you. I can't. I physically can't. It is against everything that I stand for as a Jewish man to work with a Nazi officer, like the number one Nazi. so
Hmm.
you know, it ends up
Yeah,
being
that makes sense.
yeah, it ends up being like really catastrophic, or like really just like one big hell ride where Magneto's ultimate goal was to get at the Red Skull and pretty much get vengeance on him. But Loki's there in the sky, in the sidelines, kind of like messing with these guys and like pairing up with the worst. Like, I'm pretty sure he pairs up. He also pairs up the lizard with he pairs up the lizard with like some. I think it's like the Yellow Jacket or something, like Ant Man's villain. So it's like you have this
Nice.
like giant alligator looking dude with this tiny little bug. If I'm not mistaken, there's like a bunch of funny pairings. Um, so it's this comic was just like, and in the end, I'm gonna let you guess how this ends.
Oh,
Ooh,
oh, did they?
I know it. I know this one. I know this one. They kick the crap out of him.
They beat the crap out of them. Yep.
Oh my god, I'm
Yeah.
so good.
The plan doesn't really work. They get their asses handed to them. Heroes win.
Oh,
So, um, with Norse mythology, um, before I get into this next comic, do you guys know what Ragnarok is? I mean, I know the movies kind of covered it, but
no, I have no idea what
okay.
that is.
So Ragnarok is the event of the total destruction of Asgard and the death of every member of Asgard, and then they all get reborn into a different life, right? So
Okay.
in you I think it's this one. Michael Straczynski's comic. It's from 2007, and it's titled Thor. And then it goes on to like Thor, like 6,000 or something like that. I really, if you guys want to read a really good Thor comic, I would recommend that one by Michael Straczynski. It's just called Thor by Michael Straczynski. Pretty much, the comic is Thor trying to bring everyone back, and Loki kind of in the back manipulating everybody, because he wants to rule. And so you have Thor. He brings everyone back one by one, Heimdall and whatnot, and and Loki, when he comes back, this is the first appearance of Lady Loki. Loki appears in the body of Lady Sif, who you remember, if you remember, is the pretty Asgardian girl that like is really strong. Sure, I don't know.
Okay.
She's the one
Mm,
from the first two Thor movies, the black haired girl. I think
I have no idea what you're talking about.
let's see if I can pull it up. Lady Sif. This girl, this chick. If you're watching the stream,
Okay.
okay.
I mean, she's alright.
All right, whatever. No Natalie, she's no Natalie Portman, but yeah, all right. Anyway, um, she he Loki is in her body, right? And he kind of traps Sif inside the body of like this like dementia cancer patient who's like on the verge of death, pretty much.
That's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
And so Loki kind of like he goes to Hell to see his daughter, Hela, right?
Mhm.
And he's like, I'm gonna go into my. This is where I say shit goes off the rails and it gets like really confusing. Um, so I'm gonna like bridge this off here. There's Thor's side and then there's Loki's side of it. So Thor is trying to bring everyone back, and in doing so, he needs a new place to put Asgard. So he kind of just puts it in the middle of Brockland, Oklahoma. I think that's how you Broxton, Oklahoma. I think that's how it's pronounced. Um, it's just a castle in the middle of like a farm. And so the government's like, oh, you can't do that. You got to pay for that. And he literally like in gold gives them whatever they want, and then lifts the castle up like into the sky, and all the citizens live inside the castle. It's really funny scenes, man. They're like the government's talking about how they're like, how the hell are we gonna get sewage up there for their poop? And then they're like, oh, you guys just don't throw that over to the side of the castle. That's kind of what we do. And it's like you've done this your entire life. It's like, yeah, it's the goats end up eating them, and we make fun of the frost giants because it falls over to them. And it's kind of like this like really disgusting kind of thing where it's like these guys never had sewage or toilets, but they just shit and threw it over the edge. Um,
I
and
mean, it's not an ideal society.
yeah, and the people of Oklahoma are just like, wow. That's where that spell is coming from. so so it's pretty much like this really funny like these like funny scenes, but he he getting down to like Thor bringing everyone back and trying to find Lady Sif, and meanwhile Loki's trying to like get Thor banished. So this is gonna be very confusing. So stop me at any point if I lose you. Loki leaves the body of Lady Sif with Hel with Hela and goes back in time. Uses whatever like last bit of magic he has to go back in time to to Bor. Bor is Odin's father. Odin is their father, right? So his great he goes back to his grandpa. And Bor when the only way for an Asgardian to become king is the prince to become king is their king. The king has to die. So he Bor was like the all father, the top dog, never gonna die kind of guy. So Loki devises a plan to basically kill Bor. And so what he does is he uses this. He goes back in time and fights. Like he gets frost giants to bring Bor to him, and he uses his magic and kind of like freezes him in like this snow. And young Odin comes and he's like, "Father, I'm gonna save you." And he's like, "Yes, get all the sorcerers you can and try and save me." Um, but you know, Odin comes. He has to be coronated. He has to become the new king before he can do all of that. And um, he's being like, Odin's like, "It's my time to rule," kind of thing. And so Loki kind of starts messing with his mind, and he's like, you didn't revive me. Why didn't you revive me? Please revive me." Like every time he sleeps, he can't. Odin can't sleep, and so um, Odin's like, "I'll do anything. Just please shut up." And he goes, "Okay, I want you because you abandoned me. I want you to pick up the next child you see in war. The next child you see that's left abandoned, I want you to take him." And Odin's like, "All right, fine. If that'll get you to shut up, I'll do it." And that's how Odin brought in Loki. The next child he sees is a frost giant child. They go to war again with the frost giants, and you see Loki going back in time, telling Kid Loki like minutes before the fight scene. He tells him, "Tell your dad. Your dad is the king of the frost giants. Tell him to lure Loki over to this like mountain area, or to lure Bor, sorry, lure him over to this mountain area, and after that you'll get everything you've ever wanted." And Loki's like, "All right, bet," and he does it. Um, Bor dies, and then Odin brings Loki back, young little baby frost giant Loki, back to Asgard, teaches him magic, blah blah blah, and it's kind of like this cycle, this like
Mm-hmm.
never-ending cycle, and that's how Loki came to be a prince of Asgard. Um, and it's there's like these really like interesting scenes, and I want to get to this takes place the time when he comes back. It's about 2008, which the main thing going on is Civil War, and so when Thor, back to Thor, when he's trying to set up Asgard, Iron Man comes to him and he's like, "Yo, I know you missed out on all the things, but you got to kind of choose a side. Are you Team Cap, Team Iron, or Team Me?" And Thor's like, "Well, you made a clone of me, right? You kind of cloned me and used my body to kill Goliath," which is like this whole. I'll talk about. I promise you guys, I'll talk about Civil War and get like deep into this. But Iron Man clones Thor, and the clone kills Goliath, which is the black dude in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I forget his name. Um, I forgot the name of the actor and the character. But he's killed off by Thor, the clone Thor, and so when Thor encounters Iron Man, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not joining your side." And you get this, which if you guys can see on the stream, is Thor beating the crap out of Iron Man. He's like, "I'm not choosing sides. You beat up my friends. Like the rest of the Avengers are split. There's no one to protect Earth besides like whatever you guys are running around because you've imprisoned Captain America, right?" So Thor gets like really pissed off, shoots Iron Man with lightning, and here's Lady Loki by the way in Sif's body, but gets really pissed off, and you know he's like, I'm not gonna be a part of your team. So Iron Man's like, "All right, I'll have to make you a diplomat and make Asgard kind of like an embassy, but we can work something out." And it's like it's this other side of what's going on in the event. Here's Lady Loki again, and so a bunch of things are going on. The like Sif's like old lady body is kind of dying, and there's like there's a bunch of stuff going on, and so Loki kind of hatches his last ditch like plan of I'm going to revive Boar because I killed him. I can bring him back using the same magic in 2008 Times Square, like or Rockefeller Center, right? And I'm gonna use like this little curse to make it so that he only sees what I want him to see. And so he does that. He brings Boar in, and he says, "These are all your enemies. This is what Asgard has come to." Like, and he's kind of like seeing demons and stuff. Boar sees like demons and stuff. And so, Thor comes and he's like, "I gotta deal with this now because he's my godfather or whatever." He didn't really know at the time, but he has to like, he's like, "This is an Asgardian being, and I have to beat him," because he's like flipping trucks around and has like a scythe or whatever and is in an Asgardian clothing. And so Thor kills Bor, right? Thor kills him, and technically, because Bor is the All Father, he is the technical king of Asgard. And so Thor has killed the king of Asgard, and that was Loki's scheme from the beginning. Loki wanted Thor out. He Thor because he isn't because Thor isn't a diplomat. Thor isn't an Avenger. He can't be on Earth. He can't be on in New York or whatever. But he has to go back. He has to leave Asgard. He's banished, and Thor's half brother Balder takes the throne. And Balder's kind of like he's kind of like allowing um, Loki to like be his like what do you call it? His Balder doesn't know better. He's like Loki's manipulating him, and so Loki tells him like, I know a place. I know you people in New Asgard are kind of bored. They're stuck up there, like not doing anything. You're just trapped up there. I know a place we can go to that'll fulfill all your whatever your wonders, whatever you want, right? And so he takes them. He moves the castle to Latveria, the home of Doctor Doom, and
Okay.
yeah, and in Latveria, it's very like foresty. It's very like it looks the way you'd think Asgard would look like, right? It's like forests and animals and stuff, right? It's not Oklahoma with tornadoes and like the only thing you can eat is chicken and cake, pretty much. Like there's like sorry if anyone's from Oklahoma, but it's not it's not this paradise, that the Asgardians live as. There's no golden castle or whatever, right? In Oklahoma. So he says, let's go to Latveria. There's a king there, and you guys can talk about how you're gonna split up the work or whatever, how you're gonna like rule whatever. And so Loki makes a deal with Doom. He says, I will give you Asgardians. You can do whatever you want with them, right? You turn them into weapons if you want, but you gotta leave these idiots here, in Asgard. And Doom's like, alright, that's fine with me. And he kind of starts butchering the people of Asgard. He takes in like the smaller Asgardians, like the king of music or the god of music or whatever, like the smaller like shitty gods, and he takes their heart out and makes it so that like without the heart they're not really like all their 100%, right? And so the heart is still beating because they're gods, but it's not doing what the body wants. The body isn't doing what it wants to do, and it makes it so that Doom can mind control these Asgardians. And so like you have people with the strength of like 20 men, but all under Doom's control. And so you have these like people, and he's like, all right, we're gonna get them ready, and we're gonna go to war. But you find out that Balder's like, all right, I'm kind of like suspicious of this guy, and they end up killing a human that was like he was having this human, by the way, mind you, is the most lucky human in the world because this dude ends up like doing it with the like goddess of love and wind. So
What a
she's
guy.
supposed to be like the most beautiful woman
Some
you've ever
kingship,
met
bro.
in your life, right? Like silk skin, like beautiful, right? Whatever. Anyway, um, he ends up killing her, or he ends up killing the mortal guy that he was with. His name's like William or some shit, and so
Rip Willie.
William dies, and the girl Kelda is the goddess. She goes after revenge, and she's the god of love, or she's the god of wind. I think she is. She's the god of wind, and so wind is pretty big. It's an element. It's not like god of books or some nonsense. And so he takes Kelda and like rips her heart out and butchers her. And Loki's kind of like they see it like Balder sees that Loki is with Doom, right? Or he's told that Loki's with Doom, and Loki's kind of groveling at Balder. He's like, "I would never. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I wouldn't do it." And he's kind of like he's using his like manipulative silver tongue, which is pretty much Loki's biggest weapon, is his like ability to speak. And so he tells him like, "Oh, I'm I'm gonna like he's like he's kind of manipulating them." And here's your Thor being banished. Sorry, I have a bunch of pictures. Here's Thor being banished. But yeah, he's manipulating Balder. He's like, "Please don't kill me. Please don't execute me. I'm a child of Odin. I deserve a court date," like he says. And so um, you have Loki kind of groveling and Thor having to fight Doom, who ends up using the Executioner, the armor. He makes his own Executioner armor, which Loki gave him like the specs of, and Thor kind of gets his ass handed to him. Um, After a while, you find out that like Mjolnir's kind of broken, and he had to put in his like life energy into it. It's whatever. But this pretty much this whole comic, I just kind of wanted to talk about Lady Loki and how she came to be. She really just it was really at the time it was really just her taking Sif's body, but now more so it's gotten to the point where it's kind of like both. And so
Okay.
this is the last comic I want to get to. It's called Agent of Asgard, right? And here's the big thing that starts out with Thor being stabbed by Loki, right?
Yeah, yeah, you got something coming through your mic.
Yeah. Oh, is that me? Is that is that static on me, or
No, it wasn't you.
is that
Oh, me?
little static on Zeno's side? I want to get to this, and this should be like the last bit of my notes here. As you guys can see, this is a really long comic. So this takes place during like the big event, and so you have Loki here stabbing Thor with the sword is called the Sword of Truth, and it gives a little bit of backstory. Loki was this is Ragnarok happens again, and Loki, instead of becoming like the same Loki that he always was, is put into like the body of a child, right? And so he's now what everyone calls young Loki. Which again, if you've seen the TV show, young Loki shows up a little bit, um, and it's that whole "I killed Thor" thing, right? Right here on the screen, he's stabbing Thor with the Sword of Truth. The Sword of Truth is meant to it's meant to reveal the truth. That's exactly what it does. You get stabbed with a big bunch of truth. Like if you're lying to yourself, if you're lying to the world, everyone now knows you can't lie anymore. And so you find out that Thor had this like curse in him, and Loki traps it in a little jar. And he's kind of like he's a nice dude. But you find out Loki's kind of like a spy, like an undercover spy for the All Mother, right? Odin never got revived, but Frigga did, right? In that last comic. So um, you have the All Mothers telling Loki, "You're gonna do what we say, and in return, you'll get one wish, whatever one wish you want." And he said, "I want all the stories that everyone's ever told about me. I want them to be wiped. I don't want anyone to ever know about me, like at all. I want no one to ever like know all the wrongdoings I did." And he does the same on Earth. He deletes kind of their files on Loki, and so they agree to it. They're like, "Yeah, that's fine. We'll do that." And you have Loki getting stabbed there, um, and so he. Zeno, you remember yesterday when I told you there was this big convoluted plan that I'm gonna
Yeah, I
set?
do.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna because I know Addix wants me to explain this. I know in the way I told you yesterday. Um, Loki, you find out um, with the birth of the new Ragnarok, the previous, we'll call him classic Loki, was inside of Thor in there, and that's what kind of was manipulating Thor to kind of be an asshole. And that version of Thor, or that version of Loki, sorry, is he comes out, and he comes out of the little jar. And he tells the All Mothers, he says, "I'll make you a deal. At the end of the day, you guys will have freedom from Ragnarok, no more Ragnarok, and I'll let Thor take the throne in the future. And all I require is one thing when I ask of it. For now, just we need to hide. You need to hide me." So they hide him in like this wall inside a wall. It's like this brick wall, like pretty much a prison. And so you have Loki, who's kind of like living on Earth, trying to bring back doing missions for the All Mothers, and their big mission is anyone that's Asgardian needs to leave Midgard and come to Asgard, right? That's his big thing. And so the big people on the big Asgardians, other than Thor, that are on Midgard are Lorelei and Amora the Enchantress. They're siblings, they're sisters. Lorelei has dated both Thor and Loki, and Amora, I'm sure she probably just dated them. She's had this big since like her debut. She's one of the characters that debuted in the '60s um with Thor and Loki. I'll show a picture of Amora the Enchantress here on my screen. I don't know how to spell. Um, she's like this really, like pretty blonde girl. If you've seen the TV show, this is her. Amora the Enchantress here. Um, Here she is. So Amora has been a really like you know big person in the in she's in Midgard. Lorelai's in Midgard, and you have another like this special hero. His name is Sigurd. He's on Earth as well, and so Loki's pretty much his job is to bring them to Asgard. And so this is where I say things get ridiculously stupid in this comic, and this is why it took me so long to get to this. You have Thor, or I'm sorry, Loki, um, hunting down Sigurd, right? And so Sigurd is, I'll show you a picture of Sigurd here. This dude, this like blackish dude. He's the original owner of the Sword of Truth. Loki steals his sword. He steals the sword and stabs Thor, right? So Jesus fucking Christ, I don't know where to start with this. I'll have to start. I'll have to start from the beginning, which is also kind of the middle. But that classic Loki that I told you about, he went back in time to talk to Odin, and more Loki's schemes of going back in time, and he talks to Odin and tells him, "Hey, I want you to find Sigurd, right? This great hero, and I need you to get a sword from him." And and pretty much Loki gives Sigurd his sword. The sword is crafted when Loki Loki is trying to scheme with Odin, and so he tells Odin, he says, "You're gonna make a box, and the box is gonna have like 5 locks, and then you're gonna put that sword in it, and then you're gonna lock the sword away in a mountain, and I'll come get it later on in like a billion years." And so um, the way he gets the sword is, I think I told Zeno about this, but I want to tell you, Ducky, because you're gonna enjoy this. Loki finds a fish, and the fish is guarding a bunch of gold. And so Loki accidentally kills an otter, and that otter happened to be another wizard, shapeshifting wizard. And so the family says, "You need to bring us like a shit ton of gold if you're gonna pay for my child here." And so he's like, "Alright, fine," and he gets the gold from the fish. But the fish is like, "Hey, what are you gonna do? Why are you taking my gold?" And well, what's stopping you? You're gonna take my gold. What are you gonna do about it? You have a fishing net. You have a fishing rod. You're gonna beat me with. Can you force me to give you my gold? Loki's like, "No," and he goes, "So what you gonna do about it, bitch?" And Loki pulls out a rocket launcher and blows up the fish.
That's a fucking galaxy brain move if I've ever seen
He
one.
blows up this giant fish. I really wish I would have screenshotted the picture, but I didn't get to. But he blows up this giant fish, takes the gold and drops it at the people's house, and he's like, "All right, we'll be going now." And the people, the three of them are kind of all like they're all gods, right? And so one of them is the god of greed, and so the other one of them is the god of vengeance, and the god of greed is like, "All right, well, I'm out," and he kills his dad, takes the gold, and dips. And the other guy's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You killed my dad. I can't have this." And so, he kind of wants vengeance, but he's not really a fighter. So he gets Sigurd to go after the god of greed, and he's kind of like a dragon thing now. I don't know. And Sigurd uses his special sword, and he slays the dragon, right? And the dragon shows him the truth. The truth is that the other guy is a god of vengeance, but he didn't really want vengeance. He was just upset the entire time. Blah 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 blah. Nonsense that you don't need to know about Loki. So Odin congratulates Sigurd on slaying the dragon, And he's like, all right, in return, you're gonna give me your sword. He takes the sword because it's the sword of truth, locks it in the box, and hides it in a mountain in Tibet. Cut back to modern Loki, who's climbing the mountain in Tibet to get the sword. He opens it up, and what do you know? The sword's been stolen by Sigurd, right? But like 15 minutes before this, Loki and Sigurd were fighting, and this is where you find them. And like they fall into a dumpster, and he hatches out this plan. And so Sigurd is trying to trade the sword to this like old man, Kalu, so that he wouldn't have to be so more more nonsense here. But he trades the sword for freedom, and then you find out that Kalu is actually the demon Mephisto. Whoa. Who's like the old guy that was gonna like give him his freedom. But Loki knew about this from the beginning, and instead when fucking character names God when Sigurd and Mephisto make a contract, Loki switches the contract before they sign it in blood and shake hands and whatnot, because Mephisto's the devil, whatever, and yeah, more complex stuff. They're talking about how he knew it was Mephisto from the beginning, and basically he makes the deal is that Sigurd will return to Asgard and Mephisto will go home. No one's taking any souls. And from inside Asgard, Loki and Lorelei, as well as this girl that he's been like dating, Verity, um, sneak their way into New Asgard, which is in Broxton, Oklahoma, and they break Sigurd out. I don't know why they went through all this trouble of bringing him into jail to break him out, but here we are. And mind you, this gets stupider as we go, but it's a Loki comic, so what can you expect? So evil old Loki from the previous classic Loki, right? He comes out and he's like, "Ha! This is exactly what I knew would happen. You'd bring me the sword of truth." And Loki gets Loki's like, they break in. Loki finds out about classic Loki, stabs him with the sword, and he shows him the future. And in the future, I'm gonna skip like a ton of shit, but in the future you have Thor and I just want to show you some cool pictures. This is like inverse version of this is Thor and this is Loki of that classic image above, right? That they did in this comic. This was another good comic if you guys want to read it. It's a little confusing, but it's the Agents of Asgard. Um, but he schemes him and he's like, you're nothing more than a villain. And Loki reiterates this to himself pretty much, like classic to Kid Loki. He's like, you're nothing more than a villain. You'll never be more than the god of lies. And so halfway through the comic, they go to Doom's castle because Doom realizes that Loki's scheme is to kill everyone on Earth, and so he captures Kid Loki, thinking it's classic Loki, and puts him in like this box, and then out comes like the Red Skull, and he's like, I'm gonna trap you guys in like this alternate reality thing, blah 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 nonsense. And then Magneto comes and he's like, we're gonna work to fight the Red Skull, but then Magneto leaves and you know nonsense. Basically, what I'm trying to get at here is that halfway through the comic, um, there's this really cool scene where Thor is no longer worthy of Mjolnir, and Loki picks it up, and this is what he ends up looking like as Thor. So Thor tries to shoot a lightning bolt at him, but the hammer's inscription makes it so that he has the power of Thor, which includes lightning. And this is like just what I want to get at is this like really cool image of Loki as Thor, like with the hammer. Um, but it gets even more ridiculous because um, Loki ends up like coming up with this big convoluted scheme where he realizes that like these machines are gonna attack Earth and kill everyone, and that's how Earth ends up dying the way Doom saw. But he wants to be able to make sure that everyone dies and no one gets brought back. And so classic Loki's kind of convincing regular Loki that he's nothing more than just the god of lies. That you're the god of lies. You're nothing more than that. But classic Loki he has this like magic phone, and him and Verity, which is now his like girlfriend slash best friend slash I don't know, um, the two of them are. She's like, I know you can be a better like person than what your destiny said you're gonna be. Um, and so they go to like they go to war with um pretty much the nine realms are all going to war with each other again, and you have like this really funny scene. I should have screenshotted that, but you have this really funny scene of Odin using a minigun and Frigga with some AKs, and, like a bunch of other Asgardians using guns. It's like really
Now this is what I came here for.
yeah, and it's pretty much what happens is classic Loki's plan is to get Hela to unleash the snake, um, whose name is really long and complicated to pronounce. If I can find the name of the snake, it's like, oh, it's this: the world serpent Yagman Yagmangander, Yagman or something like that. And the snake is like unkillable. Thor couldn't beat it. No one could beat it. So Frigga banishes the snake to a using her all mother magic to like death pretty much. She finds a way to kill it even though like it can't die. But while um, Loki and Hela are like classic Loki and Hela are attacking the other like realms of Asgard that hate or the other realms of the other nine realms that hate Asgard. So you have like the frost giants, the dark elves, and the fire dudes. The one that the guy from Ragnarok is from, the big fire guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
They come and they're like, all right, we're gonna beat the crap out of the Asgardians while they're weak because they're running out of bullets from their giant minigun. Mind you, this is like the stupidest thing ever. But it's really cool. It's really cool. Odin with a minigun is something you don't see every day. And so, Loki, meanwhile, is kind of like in this alternate like dimension, seeing classic Loki's like future, and it's like there's like the omen that you'll die an egotistical death, like you'll die the ego's death, and classic Loki kind of like trying to make sure that he ends up being classic Loki. Kid Loki ends up being classic Loki at the end of the day. Like he wants him to stay classic Loki, and so throughout throughout all of this, like Odin gives him like some fortune cookie wisdom, and it's all like what is a lie? What really is a lie? You're the god of lies, but what really is a lie? And so we find out, and this is what modern like god comics have come to. Like there are other god type characters like Hercules and other things, but the idea of like stories, like everything is just a story. So stories are what make a god. If you know you have like how was fire made? Well, lightning struck, and he's like, oh, what why did lightning strike? Because Thor's fighting Ymir, the beast of you know whatever, the frost giant beast, and every time his hammer strikes the body of the frost giant, you have the blood, which is rain, and the lightning of Thor, right? And it's all just stories that like Norse people would tell. Um, and so he pretty much rediscovers himself as Loki, god of stories, right? God of yeah, the god of stories. And so it's this really big thing that changes Loki, and they end up making it so that Loki ends up going to the beginning of time before everything. Like blank whiteness is how they describe it, and he is getting ready to rewrite the world, um, because he is defeated classic Loki by becoming more than just the god of mischief, the god of lies. He is the god of stories, and so he gets encountered by the god of gods, which is like if humans pray to God, what do gods pray to? And you have like those god of God kind of things. He's like, you guys are just a bunch of stories, and deletes them, and then he goes back to the beginning, waits for the Silver Surfer to um, rehatch Galactus and begin the universe from the Big Bang once again. and that is how pretty much Loki has been. I this is I think this Loki comic is like 20 yeah 2014. I'm sure there's been like a billion other iterations of Loki. I know that Loki at one point became an Avenger, and there's like a bunch of other things. And I didn't really get to read President Loki. He like apparently he steals the body of an American and becomes the president. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with Loki, but this is what I tried to get up to, and to the people in chat, and if you're still there, I was trying to only get to like an hour for the podcast, like 8 to 9, but here we are. Um, it's a lot of Loki. Loki's been a very prominent character of the Avengers, of Thor specifically, since the '60s, and he's been in a lot of things. And I just wanted to cover what like his big stories are, like his like the stuff that you'll find in the TV show. I don't really want to spoil the TV show because I know it just came out and a lot of people are still watching it. Um, that's the most I'm gonna say for Loki. If you guys have any questions for me, you guys can take this like last 15 minutes to maybe reply to me or like ask any questions for Loki.
Well, I mean, not really questions, but I can probably see why he's like a lot of people's favorite character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he just he goes through so many changes from the beginning to where he is now, and it's kind of like I don't know. People love watching other people change. I think like for the better.
For sure. And he's gone from like the evil mischief god to now the god of storytelling and the omnipotent like sort of from the future like from point A Big Bang kind of god kind of thing. Um, I said kind of god kind of thing, kind of a lot of times. So English is not good here, but yeah, he's really like this like changing kind of character that's gone through a lot of things, and that's where a lot of times you see all his alternate versions of himself, Baby Loki and Kid Loki, and Croaky, Crocodile Loki, and every alteration of Loki that's been right that appears in that like as little Easter eggs or as little things in the TV show. If you guys are watching, I don't want to get into it, but um, and there's like a bunch of alternate iterations of Loki. These are kind of like the Loki comics that I wanted to get to, that I wanted to cover. Um, if you guys want to read any Loki, I would seriously read Modern Loki's 2007 by Michael Straczynski. It's just called or Modern. It's called Thor. It's 2007 Thor by Michael Straczynski, and Loki Agent of Asgard 2014. Those are like really good Loki comics to read. It's pretty much some of the like, pinnacle Loki comics, and I can like let you know about a couple of other Loki comics that I had intended to read for um, for Loki. Let's see. Pretty much the big one was Agent of Asgard. Vote Loki is the name of the President Loki comic, the 2016 comic. It's how short is that Loki comic? Vote Loki is I think it's only 4 episodes long, so it or 4 comic books long. It's not that hard to find. I mean I know the big thing is finding comics because a lot of people like the place that I got all of this from is Marvel Unlimited, but you have to pay a subscription for it. Um, there's that. But seriously, this Agent of Asgard comic is by far some of the best Loki I've had to read. It's really ridiculous. Like he does like just a bunch of nonsense shit, like pulling out a rocket launcher on a fish. Um, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know about this
Was confusing, but no questions.
yeah, Loki is definitely confusing because he goes he goes through time, he goes through space. I pretty much skipped an entire physics lesson at some point because Doctor Doom gives like some sort of like lesson on how if you travel through time, you're kind of traveling through space as well because the planets are moving. So there's space in that, and it's just a bunch of like nonsense that I didn't want to go through, but I covered here in case anyone wanted to know. Um, I don't know if Loki is still with Verity. I don't want to look this up actually because I might get some stuff I don't want to see. Um, but Verity is very much a really nice character in this comic. She she swallowed as a baby. She swallowed this ring, this like magic Asgardian ring, and the ring made it so that um, if anyone ever tells a lie, whether it be an illusion or like a physical lie, she can see right through it. So that's kind of why Loki has this deep connection to her because Loki is the like pretty much before being the god of writing was the god of lies, and she from the beginning caught all his bullshit. She was like, oh, like he sat down at they were at they met at a speed dating like place, and he sat down and he's like, oh, you know, I'm like this 40-year-old man, and she's like, no, you're not. You're cosplaying as some green dude with horns. And he's like, wait, you can see me? What's going on? And he kind of like explains this whole thing, and she falls in love with him because he's kind of like the first person, which is ironic. He's the first person to ever tell her the truth, because she'd always have people like lying to her, like her parents get a divorce, like it's not your fault, honey, and it's like yes it is. I know it is, and or like or or like her, she has a boyfriend. He's like, I just kind of want to talk. No, he doesn't. He wants to rail you. Like things like that. Um, like oh, the company we think you'll be a great asset. Not really. We kind of just know that you can see through people's bullshit, and we need you for X Y Z motive, right? And she doesn't ever want to leave home, but she does to like please her mom. She goes on the speed dating thing. She meets Loki, and she pretty much changes Loki in this comic for like the good. This is pretty much my one of my favorite iterations of Loki, and this is I think what they tried to get at with Loki in the movies, like Tom Hiddleston kind of Loki. Um, really really deep comic, really nice comic for Loki. Um, so is that it? No more questions from you guys, or
I think that's it. I think you covered everything nice.
you guys want
Yep.
you guys want to I've seen this other group do it, but you guys want to give a grade on Loki? You guys want to grade him?
Yeah, I give him 9 out of 10 easily.
9 out
I
of 10.
give my man's a solid
I don't know if I'm gonna
nine.
hear about a character I like better than him.
Interesting. Ducky.
Yeah, so I give him a 9.5 for using a rocket launcher.
Okay, I give him a 10. Shut up.
You guys are trying to one up each other. All right. Yeah. I think Loki is great. I think some of the shit he does is really funny. I didn't even like get to specific details. At one point in the '60s, he rides a bunch of pigeons through Times Square. Like they all just like they make stepping stools for him and then flap their wings to get him to fly. And he poofs a unicorn in the middle of Union Square Park. So
Nice.
it's a bunch of like shenanigans that he goes through, and yeah. Before I go, or actually to the people in my Discord and in the Nasta Discord, and I'll make sure to send this out. But I will you guys, sorry to the two of you that are here, you guys don't get to do this. But I will send out a small forum, Google form, for you guys to vote on potentially what will be the next character that I do. Um, Thanks for tuning in, watching the first episode of the Marvel Buddies. Is that what we're calling ourselves now? Is that what the podcast is?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
thanks for tuning into the Marvel Buddies, and I'll see you. You guys good for next week?
Yeah, we should be good for next week.
Alright, I'll
Yeah, I
see you
don't do
guys.
things.
You guys will see you next week for the Marvel Buddies. That's that.
Oh, yeah.
Bye bye.